So with what's come out with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole and just the reactions to it, I feel you have a large contingent of people in the NBA and the media trying to just normalize violence. Let's just start with the Warriors. You have Kerr trying to desperately downplay this and go after the leaker and not really address the issue. All you hear from him saying about the issue is like, well, I've seen this stuff happen a lot before in the NBA. I've seen it happen a lot before in the NBA. And I want to say Steve Kerr, sure, you may have seen it happen a lot before in the NBA, but it doesn't make it right, you dumbass. Like, who gives a shit? Like, no one cares that you got punched by Jordan like nearly 30 years ago. That was a long time ago. Society changes over time. That's the reality of it. Nothing's even the same 10 years ago. So let's be real. That was from a bygone era. So we can't keep on bringing up the past to normalize this crap. It's definitely not normal. You have Draymond Green saying that the video made him look bad. It was edited in certain ways and different angles to make him look bad. I don't know how that could be edited. I don't care from what angle that is shot. It's going to just look bad. To me, that's just some poor deflection I see coming out of Draymond Green. You also hear some NBA players like Kenny Smith saying that this is normal. I've heard Kwame Brown say this, that, hey, this is normal, and it's happened before. I don't necessarily agree with what they're saying. Granted, I've heard some cases in the past from former NBA players about stories where this happened and it's been confirmed. But it's also very conflicting when you hear guys like Evan Fournier, Isaiah Thomas, not the Detroit Pistons Isaiah Thomas, the smaller Isaiah Thomas, mentioned that they've never seen stuff like this happen within like their practices with their teams. So I think it's very conflicted. I think maybe in some locker rooms it has happened in the past, and that happened, but I wouldn't say that's normal. It's more of a show of how bad that locker room was, where it happened, how toxic it was. So yeah, there've been cases of that in the past where it's happened. I know there's one famous case with Gary Payton, which happened many years ago. I think early 2000s with him and Vernon Maxwell in the Seattle Sonics locker room, where they got into it during practice, and Gary Payton got some dumbbells or some weights and tried to hit him with it, and then Horace Grant immediately tried to break it up but ended up getting his shoulder, I believe, dislocated or injured badly from Gary Payton's miss. Gary Payton confirmed this in an interview with DJ Vlad, so it's out there that it did happen. I know there's a case where also Shaq and Rick Fox literally beat up Devin George. They hazed him when he was a rookie. They stripped off all his clothes and taped him to the court naked. Shaq confirmed that in the book Three Ring Circus. So this stuff has happened before. I would say there is some truth, but I don't think you can really normalize these horrible things. It's not normal. So I don't think anybody should just say it's normal. I think the appropriate mature response was to say that this stuff happened in the past, but I didn't agree with it. That to me, it's ridiculous when you hear all these guys trying to justify that it's okay. When you say it's normal, you're basically saying this stuff is okay. It's all right for a teammate to assault another teammate when they're angry and do this dumb stuff. So I just don't agree with that stuff. You have now Draymond's mom trying to justify this nonsense. I'm going to just read out just what she said on Twitter. She said, that wasn't a sucker punch. Dre didn't aggressively go to Poole. His hands were down, man to man. You go over to talk to ask what's up and what to say. Got shoved and reacted, end of story. That to me was a very stupid response by her, but I'm not shocked. I feel Draymond takes on all the characteristics and qualities of his mom. If you ever see her interviews, she sounds a lot like Draymond. So it's obvious Draymond picked on all her bad characteristics and adopted it growing up. And that's a case of not having a father. I definitely believe that influences some guys to be more violent than others. And I can definitely say that it does impact you when it comes to just your ability, I would say, to make rational decisions and not be violent. It definitely having a father does impact you. I can tell you that for a fact growing up. My dad, he never tolerated when I got into fights with guys and it wasn't self-defense. And when I would just tell him, like, yeah, this guy said this thing to me, I didn't like it. And I remember him yelling at me and said, like, you can never hit somebody, even if you don't like the words they say. It doesn't matter what they say. They can say whatever they want. And you have the options. You have two options. You can either say something back to them or you can walk away. But that's all you get. You don't get to hit anybody unless they put their hands on you. So I've always lived by that code. I will always live by that code because my dad reinforce that. So, but you can tell a lot of these guys are a product of just their environments, not growing up with it with a father. So they think being emotional and stupid and just overreacting when someone says something nasty is the way to go, and it's not the way to go. I've been in many situations in my life where I had to walk away. There were guys who were trying to bait me into fighting with them, and I have no regrets looking at it now as an older adult. Just because if I had done those stupid things, I might have a criminal record on my name. Just and one thing I'll tell younger people, anyone who's listening to this, you don't want to get into fights when you're above the age of 18. You just don't know how they're going to end. And if you get a criminal record, they can ruin your chances to get a good job. So I just think these NBA players are just setting a bad example to young people everywhere to justify this crap. It's not normal, guys. It's you guys just being idiots. I also have a theory with some of these guys normalizing it. I think they fall into one or two camps. Either they were a bully like Draymond and they did these horrible things to their own teammates, so they need to justify it because they don't want to face that moral reckoning in their minds and in their conscience that they were wrong and it was bad. And I think the second thing is for these other guys is that who are justifying it, they fall in this camp, and this could be another camp they fall into, is that they were the victim of this stuff. They got embarrassed, they got beat up, they got emasculated, and they had a stupid way of coping with it. And I've seen this from people who are victims of traumatic, violent incidents or just other horrible incidents, especially like, rape. I've seen it where some people will try to justify it by saying like, hey, it was my fault, I deserve this. And if I had done this differently, then blah, blah wouldn't have hit me. And I always think that's the worst way to deal with this stuff. If you've ever been a victim of this stuff, I tell people, go seek therapy. Don't blame that shit on you. That's just going to make you feel worse. And it's not the best way to cope with it. Just that it's never justifiable for people to use horrible acts of violence or to come after you simply because they didn't like what you said to them. Just there's no excuses for that. That's just stupidity. And I think some of these NBA players are using that excuse for their victimization. They don't want to feel like a victim or emasculated because it's hard for them to deal with it. So they're trying to justify as normal. That's my theory about it. Also, I just want to bring in one other point about this stuff. Like, there's been toxic environments in the past, not just sports, but I just look at the school system. Many people probably don't know this. Back in the day, just way back during the 70s and prior to that teachers were allowed to use corporal punishment on students. They were allowed to beat them with paddles, rulers, and that was a normal thing back then. That was a normal thing, and everyone didn't have a problem with it. But looking back, we can all say that shit is not normal. A teacher being able to beat the crap out of their students with a paddle or just do what they want. Granted, I know there's some bad students out there, but there were cases where students that were just getting attacked by teachers that the teachers just didn't like them, but they didn't do anything outright wrong. So I don't think we should ever justify stupid behavior just because it's happened in the past. If you've seen stuff that's happened in the past that's terrible, you should try to change it as a mature adult, recognize that this was wrong and do the right thing and just stop the cycle. I think we're all responsible for that. That could be even in our families. If we've seen dumb things happen when we were kids, and just as adults, it's our turn to change it. That's how I look at this stuff. So I just think it's dumb. You have a bunch of people trying to justify this nonsense. You have clowns like Stephen A. saying that this is normal. No, it's not normal. This is abnormal behavior that has been justified for too long. That's how I feel about it. Like, I've seen fights take place on the court. Granted, I was never a professional basketball player, but I've seen it happen on the streets when I was very young, when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, just that range. I lived actually in a city called Richmond, Virginia, which at the time was the fifth most dangerous city in America during the early 2000s. And when I would play ball, I would see guys do stupid things like Draymond did. People get into fights. I've seen the cops come there a few times to even arrest people in the gyms I was playing in. So this stuff is serious. That's what I want to point out. It's not something that should ever be normalized. And still, even not being part of some of these fights and just seeing them, I have to say, like, it wasn't a great sight to see. I didn't enjoy it, and I was. In some of the cases, I had to defend myself from guys attacking me. I didn't throw the first hit. So I always thought this shit is stupid, and it's even dumber when you have grown men in adult environments doing this stuff. So I just think it's just a bad look by the Warriors. But I'm not surprised. They've always been a clown organization, but this stuff should not be justified. That's the way I look at it. There's just no justification for this garbage. If you're into this shit, take it to the streets. Or just do it over there. Go play some street ball in some like dangerous areas where this stuff is just normalized, but this has no place in a working environment. It's definitely not justifiable. That's the way I look at this. I don't have anything else to say. Tell me what you guys think, and if you like this video, please like it. It's definitely helpful, and if you want to subscribe, please subscribe. And that's all I have to say.